Cinema 4D, we're able to create user data like this on a null, particularly on the null that does come in with the facial data. It'd be great if we had nulls that had this user data immediately built in right from the FBX script. Unfortunately we don't, so we have to create our own. And now with our null selected, because this script works on the active object and creates user data based on that, and it needs to know, it needs to see the user data has to be there in order for it to be able to write. All that set up, we can now hit execute, and we can go and try to find our user data. So we can go to 3D modeling, we can go to importing from DAS, we can go to mocap, and we can do our testa take one face cap. Open. And the script just goes through really fast, blazing fast, and it pretty much generated keyframes for every frame of animation on those user datas. Great. We switch to the production with hair tools workspace here, which is my my favorite workspace to work in, and we bring up our animation timeline to about 4,000 frames, and then we just drag this out like so. We'll see that we have our full animation, and it ends about here. If we go to our timeline, we go to test the face cap, we can also see that we've got a keyframe for every single frame of animation all the way up to our 3080 point here. We can use the basic viewport controls, Alt left click, Alt middle click, and Alt right click, or the middle mouse scroll wheel as well to zoom, pan, and pretty much get around our timeline. Alright. Alright, so I think I accidentally moved a keyframe around when I was playing around there with the Alt left click. Alt left click just doesn't work in here, although it does move keyframes around, but that's not what we wanted to do. But pretty much got this big huge hunk of data here that is set and ready to drive our character's face. Now we need to link it to our character. In order to do so, we need to create some Expresso. We could probably put the Expresso tag anywhere, just to relate it to the face, and to keep everything organized here in the hierarchy. I think I'll put it on the null object. Create an Expresso tag here, and our Expresso window will come up. And what we want to do is we want to drag in the face capture and make it a little bit bigger. We've got our face capture node, and what we want to do is we want to map the facial data's values to some percentage values on our pose morph tag. So we'll go ahead and drag in our pose morph tag. We're going to need that. It's going to be on this end, and we'll drag that out so we can fit lots of data in here. And we need to map between fields here and fields here in order to drive our facial animation. Alright, so what fields do we need? Well, DAS naming conventions are kind of similar to our current facial data's naming conventions. There are a few exceptions, and there are certain things that require a little bit of common sense and kind of sort of range map tweaking. But for the most part, let's get the test the face cap set up. So we'll set up our output nodes, we'll use the user data field, and we'll pretty much just go through and we'll pretty much add each one of these user data fields as the outputs. And this is why we dragged our box out. We can pretty much create a single node that has all of our user data fields within it for some really nice organization here. Excellent. Then we can right click here in some empty space and we can go to New Node, Expresso, Calculate, and the Range Mapper. Excellent. Now with the Range Mapper node selected in our Attributes Manager here, we are going to want a real data type. We're going to want a input range of 0 to 1, because we're using theta values, basically 0 to 1 values here. Our output range is going to be a percentage. Beautiful. And it's going to be 0 to 100% because our pose morphs, if we go into animate mode, are 0 to 100% pose morphs. Lovely. Alright. In our Expresso, under our range mapper again, click on our range mapper. We can go ahead and clamp the lower and upper limits of our nodes so that we can't go above or below 100%. Alright, and for most of our nodes, we're pretty much going to be using 0 to 100%, so it's just going to map 0 and 1 real values to percentages, 0 to 100%. It's pretty simple. And we pretty much need to duplicate this range mapper so that we have a total of 11 of them. If we hold Control and drag down, or Command and drag down on the Mac, we can pretty much generate copies of the range mapper, and luckily the great thing about these copies is they have the exact same values as the first range mapper, which is great. And we'll just create a few, and you know, as we need more, we'll come in and we'll just keep doing control drags to just create a few more. I think we've got about 8 now. We need about 11. I suppose I can create the rest of them right now. Let's go ahead and this will be 9, 10, 11. There. I need to move this one out of the way, move this one down, move this one back in, like so. And pretty much got everything organized the way we need it. Now our pose mixer tag is the anomaly. We have to figure out what poses we want to drive with these particular animations. So we can go ahead and connect this to the input of the range mapper, and this output needs to be connected to the pose morph that's going to drive the pose morph that drives the browse inner down. So on our input here, we click the blue and we go to tag properties here, we can see all the properties of the pose morph tag, and these are all the morphs that were brought in from DAZ and are importing to DAZ tutorial. These morphs basically drive, for the most part, head controls. They'll make the eyes blink, they'll make the eyes go up and down, they'll make her show a fear face and anger face, they'll make her lips pucker. And pretty much by driving these tag properties with Brekel Connect's data, Brekel Proface's data rather, we can pretty much get all the animation we want very, very fast from our Connect. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful process. Alright, so browse inner down is going to be up here at the top, and I haven't found a faster way to do this. For real, we just kind of have to just sort of look through our properties and figure out what we need, but luckily for the brow inner down, it's going to be a little bit harder with some of our other properties, but luckily for the brows, we actually have a morph called brow inner down, and we want to manipulate its strength, the strength of the morph how down is it. So we'll go ahead and add that, and we'll go ahead and map that to the output. We'll map this range. So this brow inner down data from our script is driving this brow inner down pose morph. And if we drag this off the screen and we go ahead and run through our animation, we'll start to notice it's very subtle, but the brow was actually moving a little bit based on our theta values from the script. So it's really breathing life into our character. The movement is incredibly subtle, but that morph is being driven by our facial motion capture. Amazing stuff. If we go over here to our pose morph tag and we go to our brow inner down morph, as you can see, over the life of the animation, it literally is being driven by the Expresso. And times when it's a little bit higher, you know, it's being driven up to like above 10% and things, you're noticing a lot more downward movement. Alright, beautiful. But we definitely want to see more movement, so the next one is brows inner up. So we're going to go to our tag properties and we're going to go ahead and try to find brows inner up strength. The great thing about the DAZ morphs, of course, is a lot of them break it up into left and right, so you can add animation on top of this with animation layers and be able to drive the left and right individually and things like that. Great stuff. We're going to go ahead and use the brow inner up strength, and we're going to go ahead and range map the input and the output to their appropriate locations, and we're good to go. Now we'll do the outers. So go to tag properties and we'll do the brows outer down strength, and then the brows outer up strength. Alright, and then the jaw open tag property will be, this is one of those weird ones. We don't actually have a jaw open property morph here from DAZ, but what we do have is a mouth open property from DAZ, which is pretty much the same thing, so we use that. So let's go ahead and drag these and connect them to their appropriate locations so we can see the animation in all its glory. Brow outer up to brow outer up, and jaw open to mouth open. And now if we play back the animation, we should get a lot more movement. Things should look a lot more interesting. And the Expresso is driving my animations, but because of the sheer number of pose morphs, it's also having a effect of significantly slowing down my viewport, and thus slowing down the timeline cycles.